Marissa Hayes felt the morning light spill through the tall glass windows of her dealership as she walked in, her steps soft on the polished marble floor. She paused a moment at the entrance, breathing in the faint scent of new cars and fresh coffee from the break room. This place was her dream made real. Years ago, it had been a small used car lot with a rusty chain-link fence. Now it was a bright, modern showroom with a sweeping roof and floor-to-ceiling windows that caught the sun just right. Every inch of the space spoke of hard work, of late nights and early mornings, of careful planning and bold decisions, she remembered. Her first day as a manager here, when only a handful of salespeople shared the cramped office. She had driven home that night, her hands shaking on the steering wheel, doubting whether she could lead a team. But she believed in the power of respect. She believed that every person who walked through those doors deserved dignity and a chance to shine. That belief had guided her as she saved every dollar she could, paid off debts, and invested in a small piece of property. Then she saved some more, bought another lot, opened a service center, and slowly built the Hayes Auto Group into a name people trusted. Marissa moved past rows of sleek sedans and gleaming SUVs, each one reflecting the morning light like a jewel. She stopped by the finance office, where her friend Carla was already at her desk, preparing paperwork for a big deal. Carla looked up and gave Marissa a bright smile. "Good morning, boss," she called cheerfully. Marissa nodded, feeling a small thrill each time someone called her boss. It was a reminder that she had come far, in the service bay beyond the showroom. Ramps lifted cars for tune-ups and oil changes. The hum of power tools and the clank of steel were music to Marissa's ears. Loved this part of the business. Almost as much as the sales floor, because it was here that she could see honest, sweat and grit effort. The mechanics were like a family. Some had grown up in the town and learned their trade from fathers and grandfathers. She had made sure they had the best equipment she could afford. New lifts, clean workspaces, and a comfortable break area with free snacks and cold drinks. As she wandered further, she spotted Logan, the head mechanic, wiping his hands on a rag. He was tall, with a steady calmness that inspired confidence. He glanced up and gave Marissa a quick salute. She returned it with a nod. Their unspoken trust was one of her proudest achievements. She had promoted Logan from a junior tech because she saw his talent and gave him the chance to grow. Coming back into the showroom, she paused by a row of family sedans that shimmered in red and blue hues. She ran her fingers lightly along the smooth, cool surface of one car's hood. She thought of families passing through here, of fathers picking out cars for their daughters, couples celebrating their first big purchase together. Her goal had always been to make every person feel welcome and valued, no matter who they were. Then she checked her watch and frowned slightly. It was 9:02 a.m., and she had promised herself a quick glance at the morning sales numbers before the first customer arrived. She tapped her tablet and pulled up the daily report. Sales were on track to beat last month's numbers, and the service center was booked solid through the week. A small knot of worry eased in her chest. Growth was good, but it also meant more work for her team. She made a mental note to call a meeting with her managers later to discuss how to keep service quality high. Even as business grew, Marissa slipped her tablet into her leather bag and headed toward the manager's office. On the way, she passed by the customer lounge, where plush chairs faced a large TV screen playing car care tips. A selection of magazines and brochures lined the coffee table. She liked to think of this as a mini living room for people who were waiting for their cars. She had chosen the soft gray upholstery because it reminded her of clouds, of lightness and ease. She reached Greg Thompson's office, the service. Manager Ann tapped lightly on the frosted glass door. "Greg," she called. He looked up from his desk, surprise flickering across his face. He straightened his tie and offered a polite nod. "Good morning, Marissa," he said. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Greg's office was neat, a chart showing service turnaround times on the wall. He gestured to a chair, and Marissa sat, smoothing her skirt. "How's our schedule looking today?" she asked. He tapped a few keys on his computer and shared a quick rundown of appointments. "All full," he said. He mentioned a couple of delayed, part shipments but assured her the team could work around them. Marissa listened, nodding, then added, I have my own car here for a quick check. It's a routine oil change. Greg looked at her with polite confusion. He didn't rise from his seat. He said they were booked solid and customers who hadn't scheduled visits would have to wait. Marissa's heartbeat quickened. She reached into her bag and pulled out her CEO badge, small rectangle with her photo and name in bold letters. She laid it on his desk. I'm the owner, Greg, she said softly. My car is in Bay 6. Greg's eyes flicked to the badge. His mouth tightened. I don't make exceptions, he replied in a clipped tone. His words were not rude, but his manner was cold. Marissa felt her cheeks warm. She had worked too hard to be treated like a stranger in her own business. She stood, picking up her badge. I'll find someone else then, she said quietly. She turned and left his office, holding her head high even as her pulse raced. She refused to let anger or embarrassment show. Outside, she paused at a column that bore the Hayes Auto logo. She closed her eyes for a breath, reminding herself that respect needed to flow both ways. Marissa walked back toward the showroom, each step measured. She spotted Carla giving her a concerned look. Marissa returned to the finance desk. I'm stepping out for a minute, she told Carla. She needed to cool her mind before the day's first sale. She headed for the break room, filled a cup of water, and leaned against the counter. The morning light painted the walls in gold and blue. She let the calm of the room wash over her. She thought about the moment in Greg's office. She felt disappointment, yes, but also resolve. She would address this, not to shame Greg, but to protect the culture she had built. She believed in second chances, but she also knew that the people who served others had to see each other as human beings first. Finishing her water, she straightened her shoulders and stepped back into the showroom. The day had begun with an unexpected challenge, but Marissa knew challenges were opportunities in disguise. She planned to call an all-staff meeting at lunchtime to reinforce the values of respect and teamwork. She would share what happened in a way that honored everyone's dignity and set a clear path forward. As she moved across the shiny floor toward her office, she noticed the first customer of the day, walking in, a young woman with hopeful eyes. Marissa offered her a warm smile and a nod of greeting. In that moment, she remembered why she had built this place. To help people find their way on the road, both in cars and in life. She stepped behind her desk, ready to lead, ready to serve, and more determined than ever to make sure that no one, not even the owner, would feel unrecognized again. Marissa parked her car at Bay 6 and stepped out with a light smile. The morning sun made the red paint gleam. She had chosen this car herself, a sleek model that she helped design with her team. She walked toward the service entrance, holding her keys in a small folder with her service records. She nodded to two technicians chatting by a white van and opened the door that led into the busy service area. As she entered, she saw cars on lifts, their tires spinning freely as mechanics tested wheel balance. The smell of oil and rubber filled the air, and the rumble of engines under repair sounded like a heartbeat. Marissa spotted Greg Thompson near the rows of lifts, clipboard in hand. His brow was furrowed as he marked down times and tasks. She smiled warmly and called out, "Good morning, Greg. I dropped my car off for an oil change." Greg looked up slowly, as if waking from a dream. For a moment his eyes widened, but then he set his jaw. He flipped through his clipboard and said in a flat voice, "We're booked solid until Friday. No space for unscheduled work." Marissa's smile slipped a little. "Friday," she said softly. "I thought we could do quick oil changes in an hour or two. My badge should get priority, right?" Greg looked away and tapped a pen on the clipboard. "Our schedule is full. We have to follow the booking times. No walk-ins today." Marissa's heart beat faster. She reached into her bag, pulled out her CEO badge, and held it up. The light caught the badge's polished metal. "I own this dealership," she said, her voice calm. "My car is part of the regular schedule." Greg glanced at the badge and then back at her with a firm stare. He folded his arms. "I don't make exceptions," he said, voice low, but clear. Marissa felt her cheeks warm from surprise and hurt. She took a breath. I understand rules are rules, she said. But this is my own service center. She held her ground, offering a chance for Greg to change his mind. She kept her tone even kind. Greg shook his head once. We're busy, he replied. I'm sorry, her breath caught. She felt a sharp twist of disappointment. This was not how she treated others. This was not the spirit she encouraged in her own workplace. She thought of the care she gave to every customer. The personal notes she wrote to thank people for their business, the smiles she insisted her team share. She would never refuse a walk-in customer who wore her badge. That was unacceptable. She bowed her head for a moment, steadying her thoughts. Then she said, All right. I will leave my car for Friday. Please take care of it like you would for any valued customer. She placed her badge on the clipboard and turned to leave. I'll get to it as soon as possible, Greg muttered without looking up. Marissa walked away without another word. Each step felt heavy, but she refused to show anger. She didn't want to shame Greg in front of the crew. She only wanted to make sure that respect and kindness remained at the heart of her business. She pushed open the door back into the showroom and felt the sudden quiet relief of polished floors and clean waiting chairs. Carla saw her come in and noticed her shoulders were tight. Everything okay? She asked softly, stepping out from behind her desk. Marissa nodded, forcing a small smile. Just a mix-up, she said. I'll handle it. Badge back into her bag. Let's get ready for the afternoon rush. How are sales looking? Carla brightened. 2 test drives lined up already. She led Marissa over to the sales board, and Marissa shifted her focus to numbers once more. She liked this part, where facts and figures made sense. Yet part of her mind still replayed the brief exchange with Greg. Word traveled quickly. Midday whispers reached Marissa's office that several technicians had seen the whole thing. Some shook their heads in disapproval. Others worried that the owner had been disrespected. Logan, the head mechanic, even stepped into her office, hat in hand, eyes downcast. Boss, I'm sorry you had to deal with that, he said quietly. It's not right. Marissa placed a hand on his shoulder, grateful. Thank you, Logan. I appreciate your support. She felt a surge of pride in her team, knowing they cared as much as she did. Their respect for her and for each other formed the foundation of the culture she had built. Across the showroom, a customer finished signing papers and noticed Marissa. Pacing by her desk, he gave her a friendly nod. Everything go okay with the service? He asked, referring to his own car. Marissa knelt slightly to look at him eye-to-eye, matching his level. We'll treat your car like it's our own, she said. I promise you'll be taken care of. What? The man relaxed and smiled back. As lunchtime approached, Marissa prepared. For the staff meeting, she set up folding chairs in the center of the showroom floor, facing the rows of cars on display. She wanted an open, honest talk, not a reprimand, but a chance to share her vision again. When the team gathered sales, staff, mechanics, finance officers, and receptionists, Marissa stood before them, hands clasped. Her heart pounded, but her voice remained steady and warm. Thank you for coming, she began. I wanted to share something that happened this morning. I went to Base 6 to drop off my car for an oil change. I was told our schedule was full, with no exceptions. I showed my badge and explained I'm the owner. But I was still turned away. Hush fell. Faces turned toward one another, some surprised, some concerned. I'm not upset, Marissa said, raising her hand in a gentle sign of peace. I know everyone here works hard under busy conditions. Our service center has never been busier. But I want us to remember why we opened these doors in the first place. She looked around, meeting eyes. We serve people. Every person deserves respect and care. Whether they're a first-time customer buying a used car or a CEO dropping off her own vehicle, every person matters. A few heads nodded. Carla sat upright, her expression firm with agreement. So I'm asking us to recommit to our values, Marissa continued. If someone walks in customer or colleague, we treat them kindly. We say, I'm sorry, we're busy, here's what we can do. I will find a way. We don't turn away anyone who deserves our help. She paused, letting the words sink in. Then she shared her plan. I will talk with the board today about adding an extra slot for quick services, so we can handle unscheduled visits without hurting our booked appointments. We're also going to rotate a technician on standby, someone ready for those quick jobs. I'll be more visible on the floor, so, I'm here to support you. Logan stood up and spoke for the team. We'll follow your lead, boss, he said. We want to do right by our customers and each other. The meeting ended with a round of applause, gentle and sincere. Marissa felt her chest fill with warmth. She stepped down and spoke privately with Greg, who watched from the back. She invited him to the side and said, "Greg, I value your work and your leadership.
Wow.
Let's find a way to make our schedules work and our rules serve our people. You with me on this?" Greg nodded, his face unreadable. "Yes, ma'am," he said, more softly than before. Throughout the afternoon, the mood in the dealership lifted. Mechanics quietly discussed how to improve workflow. Salespeople greeted customers with extra enthusiasm. Even Greg seemed to pause and listen when staff offered him a nod. By the end of the day, Marissa's own car was ready. She walked to the service bay and saw that Bay 6 was empty. A technician approached with her keys. "All set," he said, handing her clean papers and a fresh oil filter tucked into a small box as a gift. Oil changed. We added a quick wash, too. Marissa's smile returned fully. "Thank you," she said, then turned to Greg, who stood. Nearby, he met her gaze and gave a small, respectful nod. She nodded back, and in that moment, she saw the beginning of change, not because she demanded it, but because she reminded her team what they stood for. She drove home that night, watching the city lights blur past. She felt tired but happy. A single moment of disrespect had turned into an opportunity to strengthen her culture, bring her team together, and reinforce the simple truth that every person, no matter their badge or their title, deserves respect. That belief would guide her and the Hayes Auto Group for many miles to come. Marissa arrived back at the dealership just before lunchtime, her mind still humming with the morning's tension. She walked past the shiny sedans and SUVs, each gleaming under the showroom lights, but she barely noticed them, her thoughts centered. On the moment when the service manager had refused her own car, she wanted to address the issue directly with Greg before the staff meeting. She found his office door slightly ajar and stepped in. Greg looked up, surprise flashing in his eyes. He straightened the papers on his desk. "You wanted to see me, ma'am?" he asked, his tone polite but guarded. Marissa closed the door behind her and stood with her hands folded. She could feel her heartbeat steadying. "Yes, Greg," she said gently. "I want to talk about what happened this morning." He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "I already explained," he replied. "Our schedule was full." She nodded. "I understand you were busy, but I want to hear your side. Why did you refuse my car, even after I showed my badge?" Her voice stayed calm. She did not want to make him feel attacked. Greg hesitated, glanced at the badge she had left on his desk, then back at her. "I guess I forgot who you are," he admitted, his tone quieter now. "I saw a car pull in and thought it was just another customer trying to get in without an appointment. We have rules, and I follow them." Marissa took a step closer. "We do have rules," she agreed, "and I trust you to enforce them. But we also have values: respect, kindness, service. Those values guide how we apply the rules." Greg shifted in his chair. "I didn't mean to be disrespectful," he mumbled. You just what?" Marissa prompted softly, giving him room to speak. Greg sighed, leaning forward. "I've worked here for years. I know our process inside out. Sometimes people with badges think they can jump ahead of everyone else. I've seen it before. I didn't want to set a precedent." Marissa's shoulders relaxed a little. She understood his concern. She had built the dealership by treating people fairly, but she also knew how important it was to avoid special treatment that hurt others. "I agree that we must treat everyone equally," she said. "But part of equal treatment is honoring our commitments. My car was scheduled this morning. I booked it last week with the service team." Greg's eyes widened. "You did?" he said, sounding surprised. "I must have missed it." She nodded. "That's why I came in. I trusted you to see it on the schedule. But when I arrived, You treated me like someone trying to cut in. Line, he ran a hand through his hair. I'm sorry, Marissa. I really am. I made a mistake. Marissa offered him a small, kind smile. Thank you for saying that. What matters is how we move forward. I need to know how we can avoid this in the future. Greg straightened, looking determined. We can add a flag on the schedule for owner vehicles. That way any manager will see it immediately. I'll double-check appointments before telling. Someone were full. She felt relief. That sounds good. I also want us to review our communication. If a customer or a shows up without an appointment, we find a way to help them later that day, or we explain clearly why we can't. We always offer a solution first. Greg nodded. Understood. I'll set up a quick guide for the team. Marissa thanked him and left the office feeling lighter. She headed to the center of the showroom, where staff were gathering. Carla had arranged folding chairs in a semicircle, and a few curious onlookers from sales and service leaned against cars. Waiting, Marissa stepped forward, letting her gaze sweep across familiar faces. She saw Logan, the head mechanic, leaning on a tire, arms folded but eyes attentive. Notebook in the front desk, notebook in hand, ready to take notes. She saw the finance team lined up by the windows. Everyone looked at her with respect. In curiosity, she began, her voice clear and warm. Thank you all for joining me on short notice. A few murmurs of acknowledgement passed through the group. I want to tell you about something that happened this morning. She recounted the story simply, without anger or drama. She spoke of driving in, of showing her badge, of Greg's refusal, and of the hurt she felt. Could be lost in the rush of a busy day, and how easily people could feel unseen, even in their own workplace. Heads nodded. She saw understanding in people's eyes.
Oh.
When she paused, Logan spoke up. It doesn't feel good to be turned away, he said. I can see how that would hurt. Marissa smiled at him. Exactly. And that feeling matters. Every person, customer, team member, vendor should feel valued here, no matter who they are. She let her words sink in. A few hands went up. Jasmine asked, what if we really are full? How do we explain it? Marissa replied. We say, I'm sorry. We're fully booked right now. Here's when we can see you next, and I'll personally follow up to make sure it happens. We never leave someone hanging. The group discussed quietly. Ideas for scripting responses, offering complimentary car washes, scheduling callbacks. Even Greg chimed in, suggesting a color code on the daily planner, so flags would stand out. As the discussion unfolded, Marissa noticed how engaged everyone was. They cared about the customer experience and wanted to do right. She felt pride swell. Up inside her, this was her vision in action, a team united by shared purpose. After the meeting, she invited Greg to walk the floor with her. They checked service bays together, greeting technicians by name. Greg pointed out where the flag would go on the schedule. Board and Marissa offered suggestions for making it visible. They reached Bay 6, now empty after her car had been serviced. A young technician was polishing a new car. Marissa introduced Greg and outlined the new steps. Greg shook hands with the technician and apologized for earlier missteps. The mechanic nodded, forgiving Lai. Marissa and Greg walked back to her office. Along the way, she asked about his workload and any challenges he faced. Greg opened up. Parts delays, rising customer demands, pressure to meet targets. Marissa listened, offering to bring his concerns to the board. She reminded him that he was not alone, that she supported him and his team. When they arrived, Marissa said, I appreciate you helping make these changes, Greg. I know mornings can be hectic and mistakes happen. What matters is we learn and improve. He met her gaze and said, Thank you for understanding. I respect you even more now. Marissa felt genuine warmth. You care deeply about this place, and I'm glad you're here." He nodded, a small smile, breaking his usual reserve. "I won't let this happen again." Marissa waved him off and stepped into her office. She sat at her desk, closing her eyes for a moment. The midday sun filtered through the blinds, casting stripes of light across her paperwork. She breathed in deeply. Conflict was seldom easy, but it had a way of bringing people closer when handled with care. Outside her window, the sales team greeted arriving customers. Jasmine ushered a family into the lounge, and Logan walked out of the service bay wiping grease from his hands. All around, the dealership buzzed with energy and purpose. Marissa reached for her tablet and sent a quick message to the board: "Update implemented owner flag on service schedule. Improving customer communication protocol. Team is engaged and ready." And she tapped out a note to her managers: "Great work today, everyone. Let's keep the momentum." She looked up as Carla knocked and entered with a tray of coffee and pastries. Carla smiled. "Thought you might need a break." Marissa accepted a cup gratefully. "Thank you," she said, taking a sip. The sweetness and warmth settled her spirit. Today was challenging, but good. Carla nodded. "You turned a tough moment into a positive one. That's leadership." Marissa smiled at her friend. "I learned from you. Now let's get back out there." She stood, ready to face the rest of the day. Whatever the afternoon held, sales targets, service challenges, customer questions, she felt equipped to handle it. She had faced the confrontation, listened to her manager, involved her team, built a stronger foundation for respect and service. As she stepped back onto the showroom floor, she spotted Greg checking the schedule board. He gave her a quick thumbs up. She returned the gesture and then moved toward the front doors, greeting the next group of customers with her usual warmth. In that moment, she knew that respect could be restored through honest conversation, that values could guide tough decisions, and that true leadership was found not in avoiding conflict, but in facing it with empathy and clarity. And for Marissa Hayes, CEO of Hayes Auto Group, that truth would continue to drive every mile of her journey. Marissa felt a heavy knot in her stomach as the afternoon sun slanted through the showroom windows. She had gathered her board of directors in her office just minutes ago, and they were already paging through reports. The large oak table between them was covered with papers, customer feedback forms, service logs, and notes from the staff meeting. Marissa took a steadying breath. She knew what she had to do. She began by laying out the facts. She told the board how she drove her own car into Bay 6 that morning, how she flashed her CEO badge, and how the service manager, Greg, still refused to help. She showed them a screenshot of the schedule that clearly listed her appointment. She recounted the polite but firm words he used. "No exceptions," he had said. She described how hurt she felt, not as an owner, but as a person who believed in respect. The board members exchanged glances. One of them, Mr. Patel, leaned forward. He was a calm man with wire-rimmed glasses who had mentored Marissa when she first joined the board. "Marissa," he said gently, "you acted with grace under difficult circumstances." He tapped the schedule report. "Clearly, this was a mistake. The service manager should have recognized your appointment." Another director, Ms. Chen, spoke up. She was known for her fairness and attention to detail, but we must consider if this was a one-time error or a sign of deeper problems. She opened the staff feedback report. Several technicians claimed they saw the refusal happen. Others worried that the manager's cold tone was affecting morale. "Yes, that is why I held the staff meeting today," she said. "We reviewed our values and created a plan to prevent future misunderstandings. But we also need accountability." She looked directly at the board. "I believe Greg's actions deserve serious consequences." Silence settled in the room. For a heartbeat, then Mr. Patel spoke again. "Accountability is vital. Our culture depends on trust and respect." He turned to the board chair, Mr. Reynolds, a tall man with a deep voice. "What do you think?" Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat. "Marissa, you built this company on dignity and service. When a leader fails to uphold those values, it sends a message to every employee. We cannot allow that." He paused, eyes meeting. Marissa's eye moved that we terminate Greg's employment effective immediately. Miss Chen nodded and seconded the motion. The other board members raised their hands in agreement. In under a minute, the decision was made. Mr. Reynolds turned back to Marissa. "Is there anything you need from us to carry out this action?" Marissa shook her head, though her heart pounded. "No, sir. I will handle it." She stood smoothing her skirt and gathering the schedule and feedback forms. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also a fierce clarity. She wanted to protect her team's sense of fairness and ensure every person felt valued. Office area, and asked Carolyn, her executive assistant, to bring Greg to her office. Caroline nodded and made a quick call. Within minutes, Greg appeared in the doorway, eyes wide and face pale. Looked nervous, as though he sensed what was coming. Marissa held out a termination letter. "Greg, the board and I have discussed." "What happened?" "We agreed that your decision to refuse service to the CEO and the owner was unacceptable. This action undermines our culture of respect. I'm sorry, but we have to let you go." Greg's shoulders sagged. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "I understand," he said quietly. "Sorry for what I did." His voice cracked. He folded his hands in front of him, looking small. Marissa felt a sting of sadness. Despite everything she knew, Greg cared about the company in his own way. He had worked here for years, but her responsibility was to the entire team. "Thank you for your service, Greg," she said. "I wish you well." She offered a firm handshake, and he took it. He turned and walked down the hall toward the exit. Marissa watched him go, then closed her door and sat for a moment in the silence. She let out a slow breath. She had acted decisively, but it was never easy to remove someone from the team. Carla knocked gently and came in with a tray of water bottles. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Marissa nodded, her throat tight. Yes, it was the right choice. She took a bottle. "Thank you for supporting me." Carla smiled. "We all support you." She left quietly, and Marissa stood to address the assembled staff in the showroom. She moved to the center and waited until all eyes turned to her. Some faces looked anxious, others curious. "Everyone," she began, voice steady, "I have an important update. This morning, I was refused service in our own service center. I spoke with the board, and we decided we must act to protect our core values." She paused, letting that sink in. A few frowned, remembering the earlier chatter.
Active.
Immediately, Greg Thompson is no longer with the company. This decision was not easy, but it was necessary to uphold respect and fairness. I know many of you cared for Greg and respected his work. I did too. But our first duty is to each other and to every person we serve. A hush fell over the showroom. Marissa saw tears in Jasmine's eyes and felt a pang of regret for Greg's hardship. She continued, "We are also putting in place new procedures. We will have a clear flag for owner appointments. We will train every manager on how to handle walk-ins and emergencies. We'll make sure that no one feels unseen here." She looked around, meeting her team's eyes. "I believe in you and in our mission. We will learn and grow from this. Thank you for your hard work and for standing by our values." A few staff members stepped forward with supportive words. Logan, the head mechanic, spoke for the service team. "Thank you, boss, for standing up for respect." Others nodded and murmured agreement. As the meeting broke up, Marissa felt a sense of renewal in the air. The team rallied around her, their faces bright with determination. The difficult moment had become a chance to strengthen their bonds and reaffirm what mattered most. Later, as the sun dipped low, Marissa met with her managers to finalize the new procedures. They drafted simple steps: how to flag special appointments, how to apologize and offer solutions, and how to escalate issues quickly. They scheduled training sessions and set up a feedback box for ongoing ideas. Finally, Marissa locked up for the day and took a slow walk through the now quiet showroom. She touched the polished hood of a midnight blue sedan and whispered, "We'll keep moving forward, together." She knew there would be challenges ahead. Growth always brought new tests, but she felt confident. She had shown that respect was not just a word on a wall, but a living promise. She walked to her car and took one last look back at the building she had built. It glowed softly in the evening light. She realized that leadership meant hard choices, but it also meant holding to what you believed, even when the cost was high. She climbed in, turned the key, and drove away, certain that Hayes Auto Group was stronger than ever, guided by respect and kindness on every road ahead. ChatGPT said, Marissa left the dealership under the soft morning sky, feeling both relief and hope. The events of the past 2 days had been heavy, but they had also brought her team closer together. As she drove down the quiet streets, she thought about the lessons learned and the promise of a stronger, kinder workplace. By lunchtime, the showroom was buzzing again. Customers moved between rows of cars, guided by friendly salespeople. In the service bay, technicians worked with purpose, checking oil levels, rotating tires, and testing brakes. Marissa walked in, through the front door, greeting everyone by name. Each nod and smile reminded her that respect was now woven more deeply into the culture she had built. She paused by Logan's bay, where a blue sedan sat on the lift. Logan looked up from his wrench and gave her a thumbs up. Marissa returned the gesture with a warm smile. "Everything running smoothly?" she asked. He wiped his hands on a clean rag. "Yes, boss. We're ahead of schedule, and the new flag system is working great." Marissa felt a rush of pride. She knew that small changes often made a big difference. Back in her office, she found a stack of handwritten notes on her desk. Carla placed them there that morning. Each card thanked Marissa for her leadership and shared ideas on how to keep improving service. One note suggested hosting a monthly respect hour, where staff could share stories of times they felt valued or saw others treated kindly. Another proposed a simple sign by the front desk reminding everyone to listen first, help always. Marissa read each note slowly, savoring the sincerity in her team's words. She took her tablet and typed a quick message to the managers. "Let's review these ideas at our next meeting. Keep them coming." Then she tapped out a calendar invite for the first respect hour, scheduled 2 weeks ahead in the showroom lounge. She decided to order coffee and pastries, and she knew Carla would help her pick out the best treats. Stepping out of her office, she saw Jasmine handing a brochure to a young couple near the entrance. The couple looked nervous, but Jasmine's calm voice and kind smile seemed to reassure them. Marissa watched as Jasmine offered them water and explained the features of the car they admired. The couple's faces brightened, and they began to ask questions. Marissa thought, "This is the kind of warmth I want everyone to feel as the day went on. Marissa held one-on-one check-ins with her managers. She met with Carla to discuss customer feedback trends and new staff suggestions. She spoke with Derek, the sales manager, about upcoming community events and how the dealership could support a local school fundraiser. She stopped by Greg's old office, now closed off, and asked Caroline to clear out remaining files. Even in that small act, she felt the weight of change. She walked away with a clear heart, knowing that letting Greg go had opened space for new growth. Late afternoon brought a steady stream of customers picking up their service cars. Marissa stationed herself by the exit, handing over keys and thanking people personally. One man, an older gentleman in a worn leather jacket, paused and looked at her gratefully. "You saved me a trip," he said. "I called this morning and they got me in quickly." "Thank you." Marissa smiled and shook his hand. "We're here to help," she replied. "Drive safely." Back at the showroom, she noticed that the sales team was laughing together as they updated the sales board. The numbers looked healthy, and a small free ride promotion they had launched that week seemed to be attracting attention. Marissa felt a deep satisfaction in seeing her vision of respect and service leading to real results. When the day ended, Marissa gathered the team. For a quick debrief, she stood in front of the rows of cars, her voice steady and warm. "Thank you all for a great day," she said. "We've made changes that show we care not just about cars, but about people." She paused, looking at each face. "I'm proud of how far we've come, and I'm excited for what's next." Several team members offered brief comments. Jasmine spoke first. "I've seen more smiles today, customers and staff both," and Carla added, "I feel more confident that we can handle anything." Even Greg's replacement, a new manager named Teresa, said, "I'm honored to be here and will do my best to keep this spirit alive." After the circle broke, Marissa walked alone through the empty showroom. She touched the hood of a dark green SUV and thought about the quiet mornings when she first started this journey. Back then, she had dreamed of creating a place where respect was as important as profit. Now she saw that dream taking shape in every interaction, from oil changes to sales negotiations. Before locking up, she wrote in her journal a habit she kept since starting the business. Under today's date, she scribbled 3 simple words: respect, unity, growth. Then she added a short reflection: hard choices lead to stronger bonds. The team is with me. We move forward together. She closed the journal and slid it into her bag. Walking out to her car, she noticed the Respect Hour sign on the bulletin board by the lounge entrance. It reminded staff of the session, scheduled for next week. She smiled, knowing that the idea was more than a meeting. It was a promise to keep listening and caring for each other. That evening, Marissa stopped at a small cafe near her home. She ordered a cup of tea and found a quiet table by the window. The sky was painted in pinks and purples, and a gentle breeze rustled the trees outside. As she sipped her tea, she reflected on the changes at the dealership. She thought of the manager who had once refused her service and how that moment of disrespect had sparked a transformation. She felt gratitude for her team people who cared and believed in a shared mission. On her drive home, she passed the dealership one more time. The lights were off now, and the building stood silent under the dark sky. She remembered how empty that silence had felt on the first night she closed the doors, years ago. Now it felt peaceful, like a rest earned after a day of meaningful work. At home, Marissa settled into her favorite armchair, opened a book, and read a few pages before bed. Even with her busy mind, she felt calm. She had upheld her values, supported her team, and fortified the culture she cherished. She knew new challenges would come, perhaps more scheduling bumps or staff disagreements, but she also knew her team would face them together, grounded in respect and kindness. As she drifted off to sleep, Marissa dreamed of the showroom under bright lights filled with smiling faces and purpose-driven work. She dreamed of the first Respect Hour, where stories of small acts of kindness would echo in the lounge. And she dreamed of a future where every customer, mechanic, salesperson, or CEO would feel seen, heard, and valued. In those dreams, the Hayes Auto Group was more than a dealership. It was a community built on trust, a family bound by care, and a model of what a business could be when respect came first. And Marissa woke up knowing that, no matter how fast the world changed, those ideals would guide her every step on the road ahead.